think there's something in understanding that there is a lot of nuance in the world, in almost everything. But when you have just a moment, right, where do you want to be and who do you want to spend it with? And I think the who do you want to spend it with probably trumps it all. So wherever they're at, that's where a great glass of whiskey probably belongs.
It is autumn here in Whiskeyland, and something is growing under the watchful eye of a Midwest sun.
We've been in the popcorn business for a number of years with a really unique company, Black Jewel Popcorn. And Black Jewel Popcorn raises really unique strains of corn that we use as popcorns. And we use them because we think they're better. We know they're better than the traditional yellow popcorn. So yellow popcorn's great, and you put enough butter and salt on it, I mean, God, it's wonderful, right? But if you really want to get the richest popcorn flavor, those yellow corns largely have been bred for big size and cost in mind, right? But if you really want the best flavor in popcorn, it's not that. It's a popcorn that's older, more heritage, and it's got a richer, more full flavor to it. And so we thought about, would it make a richer bourbon?
This is Rick and Ricky Johnson, the father and son duo behind the award-winning 15 Stars whiskey. We met them on the farm, where they're growing heirloom corns, first for their other family business, popcorn, and now for future blends of their high-end whiskey.
So, COVID time, I was living at home with my family. Every night at 9 o'clock, whatever I was doing, I stopped, went over to the other end of the house where my family was, and went and got a drink.
Ricky had come down to Rick's study and say, okay, is everybody ready for a little drink? And of course he and Dad and Rick were, and Annie and I would say just the wee Glencairn, not the regular size, but the baby bourbon size. And over a year and a half, I've kind of gotten to where I still like it lower proof. But yeah, I enjoy bourbon now.
You'll try
I am a platinum fan. That's my favorite by far.
She likes the good stuff.
Sometimes we'd have it neat. Sometimes we'd try whatever we tried neat the night before on a rock to see just we're always interested in the kind of flavor change over the melting of an ice cube is kind of an interesting thing.
We'll go back to what we call as our reference collection. So it's a group of bottles that on the secondary market sell for, $1,000 or some crazy number, right? Or more. And we go back to those which we think of as, hey, these are the very best whiskeys that some of the legendary distillers and distilleries have put on the market, right? As their very best. And so we use that as a reference for what we make. And while we're not trying to make anything like that, or we're not trying to steer it toward that, what we think of it is as it needs to set into that context. And early on, we were just exploring. We had no idea where 15 Stars was going to go, other than we were going to use these heirloom corns someday.
And one summer, he asked me if I wanted to take those heirloom colored corns that we sell through Black Jewel and make bourbon out of them. So of course I said, yeah, 100%. It was pretty much always part of the plan to join the family business after college. So at the start of college, I thought I'd probably be doing popcorn rather than bourbon, but it developed into what it is today.
Though their heirloom popcorn distillate is not ready yet, they're perfecting their blending abilities.
We're self-trained, I think is fair to say. I always say there's only one way to learn, and that's experience. Now, it doesn't all have to be your own experience, but it is experience. And for us, obviously, we've leaned on the industry, which has been here for a long, long time.
It's when we were really doing a deep dive to learn all the different, products and the variables that affect the flavor in bourbon. We would do these different flights.
When Rick and I go to a dinner somewhere, or we're in one of those great bourbon bars and one of those great restaurants that has a wide variety of options, when we look at that, we really are exploring for flavor.
And at the end of all these flights, just out of our own general curiosity, we'd dump about an even amount of each into a glass at the end and try it. And a lot of the times when we tasted the samples, we liked those better than each of the individual products.
We tend to look at those and say, what's on this bourbon menu that's something we haven't tasted before and that we're not 100% familiar with, and let's try something here that helps us learn.
And then we started, based on the consistency of liking the blends as much or more than any of the products, started blending a little more intentionally. So taking, distillate that we had purchased or distilled already that we were keeping with Bardstown Bourbon Company, having it sent to us, and now playing with blends of our own products rather than shelf items from stores.
We knew that we would put our heirloom corns in a bottle, and we really didn't source anything for the first couple of years. We were just distilling and trying to build a nice inventory of product. And there's no way to rush this whiskey, right? You can't rush it if you want to be the very best. And so then we did say, hey, we're impatient, but we're not impatient in that we're going to put this whiskey in a bottle at 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, right? We're impatient in a way that we're going to start sourcing some 10-year and 12-year and 15-year and 18-year whiskeys that we can put in a bottle now. And that's when the blending really kind of became our philosophy.
Rick and Ricky are at the intersection of quality and taste, being able to collaborate on several mash bills with Bardstown Bourbon Company, distilling their own heirloom corns to be blended in their future releases, providing a blueprint for the coming years, while rooting their current whiskey in higher age statement whiskeys from the past, using a palate they developed together as a way to stay personally connected.
Our blending happens in our kitchen. Ricky and I do the blending personally on every whiskey we put out, and he leads it, but I'm in the middle of it with him. And so we do that together. If you think about bourbon, it's about those moments when you're spending time with the people you care most about, in the places you love the most, and where you want to spend a little more time.
Their flavor memories extend into the familial ones. And that, by the grace and poetry that only whiskey can reveal, inevitably endows its magic into every single bottle they make. They are focused entirely on flavor. Flavor driven by their experiences of tasting together.
In the shaping of what we do, we've been able to start wherever we wanted to start. And really, our first release was a blend of 14 and 15-year-old Kentucky bourbons. Suggested retail price $279. And I had a lot of people come to me that were friends and say, now, why would anybody buy a $279 bourbon from you guys? And that's a really good question, right? That bourbon ended up being one of 3 finalists for Best Bourbon of the Year at the San Francisco World Spirits Competitions, and it sold out.
15 Stars is only a few years old, and they've won accolades across the industry for choosing to follow their gut and chase their palate.
That set a track for us that really has become the mantra of 15 Stars, is that we're really trying to let the whiskeys lead us. So we're trying to figure out where they want to go.
And by following that whiskey, their story always leads to home. There is a correlation to be drawn between the complexities of what they do as blenders and their own family dynamics.
What we're trying to do is find those places where we take really great whiskey and we bring those whiskeys together in places where they complement each other, where they have a richer flavor profile, where there's more complexity, there's a little more diversity in that mix, there's more depth in that spirit. Sometimes we have to just say, that's not going to work. And we back up and we start with a couple of other characters that we're working with to try and put them together.
We do something we call flavor proofing, which is for us, a really important part of the product development is where, people a lot of times create their final product and then proof as an afterthought, where we know that proofing affects the flavor of a bourbon in a big way of any whiskey. So instead of proofing after we've created our final blend, we're taking a bunch of the blends that we're thinking about using and trying them up and down the proof range so that we can find the best proof and blend combination. Because, we think that the best two blends aren't necessarily blend A at 105 proof or blend A at 112 proof. It might be blend A at 105 proof and blend B at 115 proof. But you'd never know that unless you proofed both of them. So it's just another step that we add to ensure that we're, finding the best combination of the whiskeys we're blending. I think we talk about it more than anyone else, but I'm sure other people are doing it. It depends on the brand, really. I would, I don't know if I would include this, but I would argue any brand that is proofing 90 proof or lower is in flavor proofing. And I would also say any brand that's cask strength isn't flavor proofing. I generally believe that. People have different preferences, but for sure, a brand that's solely cask strength is not flavor proofing. Everything we do, we're not trying to, take $1 out of the product to lower the cost. We're trying to, if it benefits the product, put an extra $1 in. So whether that's in our blending, our flavor proofing, the age of the product, everything we're doing is a purposeful step to create a better end product. So, and that's our goal in everything. In our blending, we're taking it through a bunch of rounds of blends over multiple days before we get to final blends. And then we're trying the blends at all these different proofs so that we can find the proof and blend combination, because the water affects the flavor of the blend. And then, there's a bunch of different variables we take, and we re-blend the product again before bottling to make sure the consistency is still where we want it. It's not kind of a blend and forget sort of thing wherein we're testing that product, we're sitting with it over weeks and, having a drink of it at night to make sure we, if we don't like it a week after the blend, it's not good enough, we come back to it. It's just, there's a lot of different things we're doing with flavor in mind.
Oh, yeah. That nose is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the cognac and the port kind of blend into this like fruity caramely thing.
Yeah, very dark fruity, like plum and raisin sort of notes.
Ooh, that's nice, man.
Yeah, in general, I think tasting notes are interesting because I personally, our tastes are different, but I'm not picking up more flavors than you guys are. We're both tasting a lot in the bourbons, but for people who might not think they're good at tasting notes, it's about kind of two things for me. One of it is you have to be able to recognize flavors, and there's nuances in these, and trying bourbons in flights will help you know differences, but flavor recognition, but also a lot of it, I feel, is having the confidence to say what you're thinking. You being unafraid to be wrong, because there's no wrong answer when doing tasting notes. It's all subjective. It's whatever you think. So don't be worried about saying something that you don't think is correct, because it's correct to you.
This is a pistol that was produced in Bardstown, Kentucky, around 1815, the time of that 15-star flag still flying, celebrating Kentucky as the 15th state. And, these works of craftsmanship were something that people were really proud of. And when Ricky and I put together a whiskey, we're trying to put together something that has the same kind of craftsmanship as those people in those years used. We came up with the name 15 Stars. I was reading a book on Kentucky history, and it said it was a 15th state, and I thought, well, is there any chance there was a 15-star flag? And so we looked that up, looking that up on the internet. Yeah, there's a 15-star flag. Well, does anybody ever use that on a bourbon? And no. Okay. That's the earliest one we got. So this cup was produced in China. It's an emblem of the United States. It's a teacup. There was a tea set that was made, 15 stars above the American eagle, E pluribus unum, for out of many one. And this was produced by the captain of a ship by the name of George Washington. Trade was going on then. He sailed from America to Canton, China. In 1794, he ordered this tea set. He returned to China in 1796 and picked up the tea set. I had no idea what was going on in Kentucky in the late 1700s and early 1800s, and that flag is 1795 to 1818. And so I wanted to learn about that time period in Kentucky and just say, what was happening in Kentucky? And very, very different than what almost anybody thinks is Kentucky was it was America's first West. It did have people streaming in down the Ohio River and through the Cumberland Gap. So this is the earliest view of a 15-star flag that we know of. So that is a 15-star flag on that ship. And this is a Cooper's certificate. So a certificate that from New York City that shows a harbor in New York City and a lot of American imagery in there that was a Cooper's certificate would certify that this person is a member of the Cooper's Union, so to speak, or he's a member of the kind of group that makes barrels, and so they would support each other, and so you have to reach a level of skill. What's really interesting about this is people wonder, well, when did you start charring barrels? Well, here's 1794, and here's a flame with the staves out and smoke coming out, and they were charring barrels in 1794. You know, Kentucky had this rich heritage of building craft items that there were tradespeople. And these were fine silver makers, these were furniture makers, these were gun makers, and they were whiskey makers. We let that inspire us to create what they created, like they created, and the spirit that they created it. We like to think of it as we're not the modern day crafter or the modern day maker where we might be getting a part from China and something else from Thailand, and we're trying to price engineer every nickel out of the product that we can. We look at it as those people who created something, handed it to somebody they knew, and there's a different relationship there, right? So we want to craft a bourbon that we want to hand over to our friends and family and be really, really proud of that.
Something cool we have, also relating to the collection, a little unwieldy, so let's see if I can even get it out of this thing. There we go. So this is a Kentucky long rifle. This being a muzzle loader, you had to put gunpowder up in the top, then a little wad, a piece of cloth, a bullet, and then you would take this ramrod right here, I'm not going to take out because it's going to be hard to put back in, but take that, press it down, press the bullet down the barrel. Then there's a little place here under this thing where you can put powder. Put the powder in there. There's a hole that connects the outside to the inside. You put this back down over the powder, pull the flint back, pull the trigger, and when the flint hits against this piece, it creates a spark that will then light the powder, transfer into the barrel, and shoot the gun.
In Whiskeyland, collaboration is a love language. And when good folks find kinship in their craft, we love to taste it.
Butchertown Grocery was one of the very first establishments to carry 15 stars. Amanda Johnson is the owner, operator, chef, pastry maker, and it's a perfect example of craft in Louisville, Kentucky.
I used to bake with my grandmother when I was a kid. She also used to send us this Christmas box of cookies. We lived in Minnesota, she lived in Michigan. As a kid, it was like a ginormous box, right? Probably wasn't that big, but I just fell in love with baking. So I went to Sullivan here in Kentucky, and I've been here since. I think I moved here in 2002, so I kind of made it my home. She's
putting her own self into the products that are in that case, and it tastes. You see it in the decor and the layout. They're putting themselves into that store. So you've got the expression of an individual, and That's pretty rich when you can grab those different expressions. It's kind of like when a decision by a giant committee is going to take all the edges off. It's going to smooth everything out. Everything will be good, but nothing's going to be exceptional, right? You don't get exceptional work by large committees. You get exceptional work by some individuals deciding they're going to do the very best that they can, no matter what anybody else says. That's where you get something really special. That's where the edges aren't cut off.
I just want to have something that, for one, I love and I would eat. Sometimes, like, you go out to eat and stuff, it's just a letdown sometimes. I try to make it so hopefully everybody that comes here walks away with a smile or, you know, has had a great experience with a baked good or even a bottle of bourbon. We had a restaurant down the street and they did barrel picks and stuff, and we just decided we would kind of continue that tradition, and I kind of fell in love with bourbon, and now I try to do barrel picks. I also pick certain bourbons that I like, and I, you know, feature them on our shelves. So I love bourbon now. It's a Kentucky thing though, probably too, right? Either you love it or you hate it, I feel like.
Having a bourbon at a bakery has unlocked some sort of dormant desire inside of me to imbibe in new spaces. With the parlay between baking notes and actual baked goods, I have somehow grown angel-like wings that have formed from flour and butter, and I have this chance to soar into some sort of flaky, sugary, spirited bliss, bathed in nostalgia and inspired by the tenacity to do the hard things better, to lift one's spirit towards excellence.
Even though my grandmother's not here, I still have that, like, I want her to be proud. You know, hopefully she's looking down like this, look at this, you know.
She's like, blue.
But yeah, I wouldn't say blue, but yeah, she probably would have been like, I don't know about this Togarashi. That's the people you need to just convert, right?
Yeah.
Just try it, and you're gonna be like, man,
Just takes a bite.
so good.
Yeah, well, I think about my mom and my grandmother, and like I said, you know, with our bourbons and blending, it's still embedded in me. If you want to make the best applesauce or the best apple pie, you use a blend of apples to get that flavor. And so, and just the care that they put into it, not from a commercial standpoint, right, but from a family standpoint. You know, making something that you really want to serve your family and that makes a memory. Gosh, she's trying to craft something that's really, really special. We're trying to craft something that's really, really special. And we've been appreciative of the relationship and quite appreciative of the baked goods.
There's not a lot of opportunities that people get like this to do something, one, that they really enjoy, and two, it be with their family. So getting to graduate and spend a bunch of time with my family, and my sister even works with the popcorn company. So I'm in the same office as my dad and my sister, and then my mom's around all the time. We go to lunch with my mom, go to dinner out at their house. So it's like, you know, we generally agree on pretty much everything, but occasionally there's some things we debate on, and, you know, having a couple people who aren't entirely like-minded generally creates better outcomes. If I was doing the same thing for a company somewhere, would I have the same confidence to say, I think this, I think that, I like this blend, whatever, we should do this? Maybe not. But being around my family, I'm very willing to express my opinions. But yeah, I think that's made for a more open and positive thinking, forward-moving environment for the company, it being a family business. Just having the people that I can rely on around me at all times, like I know that my family's always there for me, so having those people in close proximity, the people I trust most and enjoy being around the most, is something, it's more than you can ask for.
It's been a luxury to work as a family together. I think that's probably a lot of people's dream, that if you could do that, you know, that'd be great. And anyway, kind of keeping your family close, right? In today's world, there's so many times when family gets scattered across the country or across the world. I think one of the real keys is you have to recognize people are individuals, right? And they're all going to be different. And so it's about finding fit. And I think that's and making fit, right? And so, you know, if everybody's going to have a different take on it, and Ricky's take on a business is different. But, you know, when we look at blending is kind of, it's the art of balance. Maybe it's kind of like a blend, right? That those different viewpoints of family members kind of coming together and trying to create a business, it probably improves it. It's just like a blend of whiskey. Any one can be really, really good, but to get the very best, it's kind of a blend of those viewpoints. So it's been a really rich opportunity to have, you know, your two kids living in the same town that you live in and working in the same business, and it couldn't be better.
It's dinner time at the Johnsons, and tonight on the menu, heirloom cornbread. They were kind enough to invite us to stay, and the Bayless brothers never turn down a free meal, especially one that looks as good as this one. 15 Stars is an award-winning whiskey, but when you let the accolades fade away for the moment, you see a family, one that loves each other deeply. So we had the great joy of sitting around the table of their family home, just a hallway away from their blending facility, and sharing a meal. Breaking bread with our new friends, we admired their connection. The table was warm, full of laughs, and a mutual respect that seems to recall a life of truly taking care of one another. If this is how their whiskey is made, then it is no doubt filled to the brim with care and consideration, and an authentic desire to truly speak. And when it speaks, it reaches for greatness, both in balance and flavor. And if you're like me and occasionally find yourself worried about the state of the world, take some time to learn a little history, drink a dram of the good stuff, and eat some homemade dessert. It'll warm your heart.